Now that you've scanned the poem to demonstrate that you're familiar with the rhythm and rhyme scheme, the rhythm iambic pentameter, we have one iamb of an unstressed and stressed syllable. 5 of these in a line contribute to the iambic pentameter. In the rhyme scheme, A, B, day, may, temporate, date. You should have done this for all of the lines of the poem. Now we need to turn to the actual content. What is Shakespeare trying to say? So we know that Shakespeare sometimes poses some challenges for us. He was writing in what we now call early modern English, which is very similar to the language we speak today. However, there are some archaic words, some obsolete words. Some of his verbs are in different forms than we speak in now. So the first step in really analyzing what Shakespeare's saying is figuring out the vocabulary. So what you need to do is click on this link here, which will take you to a glossary. Once you're in the glossary, you could use the search box to look for any words that you're unfamiliar with. I'll give you an example. In line 2, Shakespeare uses the word temperate. Now, I'm kind of familiar with this word, but maybe in Shakespeare's time it meant something a little different than it does now. So I'm going to look it up. And this glossary will give me a wealth of information. I have my definitions down here. This is what you're going to need to copy and add into your own glossary. But we also have where the word appears in all of Shakespeare's plays and poems. We have it exactly where I found it, in Sonnet 18, line 2. So you need to copy the information here and add it to your glossary. Please do this for any word that you don't know. This will help you understand what Shakespeare's getting at. We need to understand the words as they were used in his time before we really understand what he's driving at. Your next task, after you've completed your own individual glossary, is to summarize or paraphrase into more modern English what Shakespeare's actually saying. So in order to do this, we first need to talk about the form of a sonnet. Now, the form means a couple of different things. We've already discussed how a sonnet is structured on the line in iambic pentameter, and the rhyme scheme in each quatrain. The first is A, B, A, B. But now we need to discuss the form of the poem as a whole. Most sonnets begin by establishing the theme in the first quatrain. Usually that theme is introduced through a metaphor. What's our metaphor here? It's very clear. In the very first line, Shakespeare says, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" Now we know that a metaphor is a comparison between two unlike things. Shakespeare even uses the word here. He's very explicit. In the first line, he's telling us, "I shall compare you to a summer's day." So he's comparing his love to a summer's day. Now in the second line, he's making this more explicit. He's saying, yeah, summer days are great, but you're even better. You are more lovely and more temperate than a summer's day. Why? The colon, after the colon, Shakespeare's going to tell us why. Because rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. May is associated with spring and flowers, right? So he's saying, in summer, rough winds come around, and they shake all the flowers from the trees, thus destroying beauty. And summer's lease hath all too short a date. Summer's too short, it just goes away. Most sonnets continue to develop this theme established in the first quatrain in the second quatrain. So our metaphor is deepened and extended. Shakespeare's going to continue to say how his love is so much better than summer. So more reasons. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines. The eye of heaven, we have another metaphor here. The eye of heaven is the sun. Sometimes it's too hot in the summer. And often his gold complexion dimmed. Gold complexion dimmed. Maybe the sun dips behind clouds, or the passing of the seasons into fall. Summer fades into fall, and the sun gets dimmed out. And every fair from fair sometimes declines. Now here's an example of a word I forgot to add to my glossary. I should go back and do that. We know the definition of fair nowadays, meaning, we're fair in our business practices, we're fair in our grading, whatever. We're equitable. However, in Shakespeare's time, fair meant beautiful. You're fair in complexion, meaning your face. You're beautiful. So Shakespeare continues to talk about beauty here. As summer progresses into fall, beauty fades, and we're approaching winter. Finally, in his last line, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. Again, summer's passing, it's going away. In all these ways, Shakespeare is developing his theme by saying that his love, the person he's addressing in this sonnet, is better than summer. I'm comparing you to a summer's day, but you are so much better. Now, most sonnets progress to a turn, or the technical term is the volta in the third stanza. Most of the time this is introduced by some kind of conjunction, like the word but. When you see a word like this in the third stanza, sometimes it comes in the rhyming couplet at the end. Here it's in our third stanza, our third quatrain. When you see a word like this, you know that the poet is getting to the crux of the matter, the heart of the poem. In Sonnet 18, Shakespeare turns, in the third quatrain, from describing summer and all of its disadvantages in quatrain 2, to describing his love, and how his love is different than summer. He says, "Thy eternal summer shall not fade." Unlike summer, you're not going to go away. You won't lose your beauty. Nor lose possession of that fair, that beauty, thou owest. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. Shakespeare's saying that your beauty will go on. Finally, all Shakespearean sonnets end in the couplet. The couplet serves as a resolution or a conclusion that finally brings this theme that was begun in quatrain 1, developed in quatrain 2, and then twisted or turned in quatrain 3. It takes this theme and brings it to its ultimate conclusion. Shakespeare says, "So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee." So as long as men are around, and they can breathe, and they can look at things, as they can perceive beauty, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. What is the this? Shakespeare's talking about his own poetry here. So a lot of critics kind of wonder, is this poem really about Shakespeare's love, or about his poetic abilities, his confidence? Is he boasting here? Not only will your beauty never fade, but my words will live on forever. This is how you're going to analyze your sonnet. Again, to recap, you need to first look up words in your glossary so that you know Shakespeare's vocabulary, and then try to discover the theme that is developed in quatrain 1, how it's further developed or expanded upon in quatrain 2, and then how it's complicated or twisted or turned in the turn or volta in quatrain 3, and finally, what's Shakespeare's final word in that last couplet?